Today's video is all about what it's like to travel by plane with two dogs. Our financial freedom has allowed us to begin a life of slow travel as we make our way across Europe with our two dogs.
So today, we're gonna bring you along for the ride as we take our two poodles on a plane in cabin, and you'll see exactly what it's like.
I'm Gillian.
And I'm Stephanie. We're a Canadian couple who have saved and invested our way to financial independence. This means that I've been able to retire from corporate life in my 40s.
And I retired in my 30s.
We've been traveling full-time with our dogs now for over 2 months, and this has included 2 international flights. The longest one we've taken them on so far has been from Singapore to Poland, which was over 12 hours.
Today's flight should be much easier because it's just a short hop from Istanbul, where we've been staying for the past month. In case you're new to our channel, I'll link up here a video that takes you through some of the experiences from this past month. So today we're taking a domestic flight headed down to the southern coast of Turkey called the Turquoise Coast.
We're excited to bring you along for the ride. Let's get this travel day started. We have finally made it. We are out of our apartment in Istanbul and we are on our way to the airport. So no matter how organized we are, and we do like to be fairly organized and start our planning for the big trip a couple days in advance, but no matter what, it's always a bit of a scramble in the last few hours as we count down to our airport pickup. Normally, if we're just traveling on our own, we would make our way by public transit or by some less expensive method, but because we're with our two little dogs, we do want to make sure that everything is very smooth. We don't want to leave anything to chance, so we do have airport transit booked in advance. A couple other things we like to have ready when we're preparing for a big travel day. We like to have a little bit of food for them in some of our carry-on so that they're guaranteed a good meal when we land, even if our luggage happens to get misplaced or lost. We also like to ensure that they have a last chance to have a little outing before we head off. So we'll give them a little bit of a walk, and that's just, they can stretch their legs, go to the washroom, because once they go into their carriers at the airport, they will not be coming out until we're past the customs on the other side of our destination.
So maybe now's a good time for me to just touch on how you actually book dogs to travel with you on the flight. So this is something that you need to call in to do because there's a maximum of 2 dogs per flight allowed. So our 2 guys basically take up the whole quota. So you call in to book. Then in terms of the other paperwork, fortunately for domestic flights, it's not all that complicated. Whereas with international travel, you have to think about vaccinations and vet exams and so on. But for this one, not too much to worry about. So we just need to check into the flight and then we'll be on our way.
The other thing to remember, and this is important for any time when you're traveling with animals, whether domestically or internationally, it's really important to get to the airport ahead of time. So there is no last minute running to the gate. We like to get there at least 1.5 to 2 hours early, even if it's for a domestic flight, because you never know what will happen when you check in. So for example, as we were going from Lviv, Ukraine to Istanbul, we did find that when we were checking in, they were very keen to go through our documentation in detail for the 2 poodles and actually take photographs of each and every page of the booklet that we have for them, which constitutes their EU passport. Okay, so we got through the first round of security because the airport here has a couple levels of security. So just as we had gotten the dogs bundled away in their carriers, we reached the security. So we had to actually take them back out of their carriers so that we could walk them through, and then of course the bags themselves, the carriers, go through the x-ray machine. So all that was done, we were able to package them back up. Never an easy job because they definitely don't want to go back in once they have been out. Then we went to check in. Interestingly, our lovely attendant who was checking us in didn't maybe realize the policy is that two dogs on a Pegasus flight should not be seated together. So she overlooked that to our benefit. So we are actually sitting together in our preferred seating, which just makes things a little bit easier when we've got the two dogs to manage during the flight. So we're now going to be going through the exit customs and then probably another round of security, and then we can relax and just get ready to fly.
How are you doing, Huxley? You doing all right? Jasper? Hey, sad boy. Finally up in the air after getting our little guys settled under the seats. It's quite a tight fit. We're sort of taking turns having a spot to place our feet flat on the floor. It's just that tight, but we're managing okay.
When we're boarding the plane, we do try to be at the front of the boarding line. We sort of think that the dogs are a bit like children, so we can actually hop on into the plane along with the families that do have actual children. So that just helps us make sure that the dogs stay as calm as possible, because if we're standing in a long lineup for boarding ahead of time, it just creates a little bit of anxiety. So we get on as early as we can, and again, it is a lot of work to sort of squeeze them into the very tight fit under the seats. So even though the carriers are designed to fit under there, ultimately it's a small space, so you do have to kind of squish it in a little bit.
So they're tucked under there now and seem to be okay with things. Some small little noises every now and then, especially from Jasper, but we have carrot sticks and I've been feeding them to him and he's happily chomping in there doing fine.
So that brings an end to our third ever flight with the little dogs. We're now in the cab heading from the Hallman airport to the little hotel where we'll be staying for a few days in the Butterfly Valley, which we're very excited about. Overall, I think the flight went really well. I always have a couple areas of concern as we face down these flights with the dogs. The first one is around getting through security. So we typically have to take them out of their carrier to walk through all the different x-ray machines that they put you through. And it's always a bit of fuss to get them back in because they thought, hey, freedom, and then they're all of a sudden being tucked back into the carrier. So fortunately that went very well. And then of course the second area of concern is the flight itself. And this time Jasper was a little bit noisy through the flight, so he had a few things to say and he wasn't perfectly happy, but we managed to get through. It's always good to make friends with your neighbors and let them know that you have a dog with you, and usually people are quite understanding, and fortunately Jasper did quiet down after a little while, so that was quite good, and Huxley was a little angel, as I said, all the way through.
So just another hour and a half drive and we'll be there at Feralia to enjoy our time on the turquoise coast. We've arrived in Feralia, this little village on the southern coast of Turkey where we'll be spending the next few days. We hope you found it interesting to see what it's like to travel with two dogs. It's not the easiest, but we certainly love having them along with us.
So we'll be on the coast of Turkey for a whole 6 weeks, just a few days in Feralia, but then we're going to be moving on to other destinations. If you want to follow our adventures, please do subscribe and hit that notification button. And if you have anything that you'd like to know a little bit more about, especially as it pertains to taking our little poodles along for the ride, definitely leave us a note in the comments. Thanks for watching. See you next time.